workforces, she's got a solution. No pressure there. So, but I'm pleased this morning to have Sandra Palavoda from Team Neo with us this morning. Sandra's she's part of the research team, manager of research at Team Neo. And part of what she's been doing in her research work on workforce development is direct outreach and engagement with the business community, with the philanthropic community, with the education community, to talk about those interconnectivity between those agencies and how to work together, how to address accessing workforce. So, and this is part of Team Neo's overarching effort on aligning opportunities around workforce. So there's a number of research projects that Team Neo has worked on and that Sandra's been directly involved with in terms of advancing that research and the findings out of that and the next steps to how to take that research and put it into practical use. So excited to hear from her today about that. So a little bit of background. So you're a Bachelor of Science in Geography and Planning or from Urban Planning from University of Cincinnati. So I'm a shareholder. We're at Kent State, but I'm a shareholder at Cincinnati with a student there right now. So give a little shout out to the Bearcats. But appreciate being hosted here at Kent State in Ashtabula. Obviously, a tremendous resource, educational resource for us, and a partner on workforce needs.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. It's great to be here this morning. So again, my name is Sandra Palavoda, Manager of Research with Team Neo. Quick show of hands, who's heard of Team Neo before? That's a big number, so that's great. For those of you who aren't aware, we are a network partner of Jobs Ohio, so we have access to incentive dollars for new, expanding, relocating businesses to try and increase the economic development of the 18 counties in Northeast Ohio, of whom Ashtabula is the top right corner. So thank you, Greg, for that introduction. Yeah, bachelor's in urban planning from University of Cincinnati, certificate in geographic information systems, which is a fancy word for mapping, from Cleveland State University. So I'm going to be talking about our series called Aligning Opportunities, which focuses on talent, workforce trends in the region, kind of explains a little bit of background as to why we are seeing in our region the talent shortage today, even though all of the U.S. and the world is experiencing talent shortages. So we started off the year by diving into what we called untapped opportunities. This focuses on the veteran population of Northeast Ohio. This is a highly educated, highly motivated workforce who are more often than not are participating in the labor force in some capacity. And so what we wanted to do is shed light on also other services that are provided in Northeast Ohio that can help connect businesses who are struggling to find talent, maybe tap into other resources that they haven't been thinking about. So we started off with the veteran population here, of which we have a large population. In talking with a organization called militaryhire.com, they had let us know Cuyahoga County especially is kind of like a mecca in Ohio for veteran talent. Now that there are plenty of veteran talent all around 18 counties. So that's why we really wanted to hammer home that this is a population that that businesses need to take a second look at. They're also a population that is primarily working in federal government, local state government. They're working in manufacturing and professional services. They are working in professional consultancy jobs, in management positions and service positions. But something that came out of this conversation, especially with people closest to the veteran population, they are also an underemployed group. So they might get out of the military, have a first job out of the military that doesn't utilize their skills because there is an issue with translating their military skills into a civilian occupational setting. So that there are some resources and consultancy for that type of translation, and there are people that you can partner with, that businesses can partner with to help them explain and find that type of talent. I'm going to end each of the segments, or the Aligning Opportunities series, with where is the opportunity from this report. And where we see the opportunity is to spread awareness in the industries and occupations where veterans are not concentrated in. So maybe not healthcare, because there's a very clear pipeline of veteran healthcare talent into the healthcare system, but are there for production occupations, or are there for computer and IT. I know that those can be very lucrative for veteran talent to pursue cybersecurity, for example. We also want to continue spreading this awareness that there are partnership organizations for businesses to pursue. They don't have to go at this alone. They can find someone either through Team NEO's network of kind of resources, and also our network through Jobs Ohio. But more often than not, there is a solution to help people, to help businesses if they're looking for extra talent needs. Well, sorry, folks. I guess the bottom does work. Okay. Sorry, I'm not sure how to fix this. Maybe. Oh, thanks. Easy fix. Our second iteration of the Aligning Opportunities report focuses on women in the workplace. This is a report born out of the pandemic and born out of the many research and data figures that came out as to the impact on women from the pandemic and from pandemic-related challenges. What we know that is over time, women and young girls have been increasing their educational attainment. We can see the rates of bachelor's degree there from this line here all the way up has increased really exponentially. It's really impressive, the strides that culture has encouraged women and young girls to pursue higher education. Another positive on the data from COVID and from all of the discussions around COVID and women's challenges was that there are a lot of younger women who are in the workforce. Maybe they're at their entry-level jobs, at their middle-level jobs, who are earning an amount that is on par with their male peers. So if what we wanted to do over time was to shrink that gender wage gap, what this is showing is that over time, the gap is shrinking for women of a certain age, at a certain career point. But what we wanted to bring in was an understanding to our audience that this is not necessarily felt by women of older age groups, and this is due to a variety of reasons. This might be women of older age groups are still concentrated in industries that are more often lower paying, and we can see this by more women moving into engineering, other STEM-related fields, healthcare fields that are increasing in their wage rates. But it was an interesting topic because we talk about gender parity for women when it comes to wages. But what we saw with the pandemic was if you leave the workforce at a certain age, whether that's because you're starting a family, you're taking care of other family members, like a lot of times in the pandemic, that can, however, hurt your ability to recoup the costs or recoup the dollars that you would have earned had you been in the workforce at any given year. With this report and in this year, we also want to focus on STEM jobs and the representation in women and minority groups in STEM jobs. These are consistently jobs that pay a family-sustaining wage, which right now, and we use Cuyahoga County because it has some of the highest populations in Northeast Ohio. In Cuyahoga County, it takes about $75,000, a little bit over that, to sustain a family if you have one person working, one spouse who does not work, and 2 kids. That number decreases or increases depending on how many kids you have, how many people in your household are working. But we really want to encourage and show young students that these are career pathways that can offer you stability, advancement, and really fulfilling careers. But another conversation born out of this report, whether we're talking with higher educational institutions or maybe even just your average parent, is when kids kind of start to get discouraged from pursuing STEM, We had an Aligning Opportunities, the overarching event just last week, and we heard from a reporter was one of the moderators for the panel, and she was talking about how we can't keep shoving STEM down our kids' throats. Well, that's never the intention. The intention is never to force children into something that they don't want to do. But we certainly don't want to discourage them and perpetuate stereotypes that, oh, you say you're bad at math, that means you'll never be good at math. Or oh, you're not interested in science, so we shouldn't encourage you to pursue science. We want to foster that creativity and that interest in learning about STEM fields. And just for the figures here, this Northeast Ohio women in STEM jobs, there are thousands and thousands of women who are currently in STEM jobs. Now, when you look at this rate as opposed to men, it's much lower. So there's still some work to be done when it comes to cultural tension between men and women in these male-dominated fields. But it is happening, and there are resources to help in that cultural bridge. Yes. Yeah, let's, whenever.
I have a quick question on the women involved in your 750 figure with manufacturing. Right, we're dominated by manufacturing here in this county. Have you seen a transition for young women moving into careers in manufacturing at all levels, from coming in as maybe a production job all the way up to engineering and other science jobs? Do you see any gains in that area, any strategies for helping to advance engagement with young women in manufacturing?
Absolutely, there's the interest and the desire by employers to keep and retain those individuals. It's hard to tell through data because we know over time Northeast Ohio has lost it's a small percentage, but it still is a percentage of our workforce and of our population. So as we see those numbers decline, it's a little harder to see the clear strategy that influences growth, but we do see completions in manufacturing graduates. So we see more interest in people graduating from manufacturing degrees in Northeast Ohio, which I think is a testament to the engagement of manufacturing employers. Absolutely. In the report, we also wanted to highlight an interesting source that we found. It's called 50/50 Women on Boards, and this is a kind of a tracker of different corporations, large corporations throughout the U.S. that have reached a level of gender parity on their boards itself. So these are women, and more often than not, for them to be, I think there's a specific word for it, but the specific type of equality that they see on this 50/50 boards means that there's not only women and men, but there is representation by people of color in a statistically representable way for that company. Among those are, the first one that comes to mind is American Eagle. It is one of those companies that has changed their gender parity on their boards in decision-making power. And so seeing that type of growth from companies as well, and seeing that type of leadership is another good measure for how our region might be performing, especially at these top-tier corporation levels. This kind of puzzle figure to the right were strategies that we had seen through our research on how employers were retaining their talent, or maybe trying to just adjust their culture in a way that they can to help retain, encourage employee engagement without necessarily going into hybrid work. So, for example, auditing their internal practices for pay equality. If a company can say that they did an honest audit of their payments across the range, if they're looking at all levels, entry level, mid-level, director level, and above, and they're looking at the different people with their experience levels, and they can say, we pay this person X amount because of X, Y, and Z reason, then that's really an employer of choice, because you know that you're going to be treated fairly, and you know that they have established that as a guiding principle. The opportunity here that we see is not only to empower women of all age groups, but to address and strengthen the STEM pipeline for girls through either representation or through empowerment during our engagement, and in the way that we also talk about those types of jobs and career pathways to young children. In this third iteration, Misaligned Opportunities, this was one that began in 2020 and focuses on our minority communities within Northeast Ohio. We know that through data, we also have a diversifying workforce. So from 2001 to 2021, we can see a doubling in our Hispanic population in Northeast Ohio, percentage points increase in our Black population. Likewise with Asian and 2 or more races, we are a diversifying workforce. And with a diversifying workforce, we need to have multiple solutions to the different problems that different communities face over time. Similar to in the Lost Opportunities report, we look at the representation in these STEM jobs, in these jobs that have these high-paying wages, that offer a lot of opportunity, and that also really drive forward the Northeast Ohio economy in healthcare, IT, and manufacturing, is just very low and disproportionate representation for our minority communities, Hispanic, Black, Asian, 2 or more races. Those are the primary minority communities within Northeast Ohio. And what we see is that this doesn't really change over time. And what that tells us is that we are not doing enough to expand opportunities for our minority communities in these types of jobs. Something that we brought in for this Misaligned Opportunities is this other research around talent attraction and talent retention. So what we did was we looked at the US Census estimates on where people had lived a year prior and where they lived now. And we could compare that, our county list, to this national database and essentially see what is the rate at which we are losing people, what is the rate at which we are losing white people to people of color, is the ratio that we are losing educated in terms of bachelor's plus people to people without bachelor's. And these estimates show a trend that we have heard from not only research papers, but also from professionals who work in downtown Cleveland, working with Destination Cleveland. They're a tourism agency for downtown Cleveland, as well as for the Fund for Our Economic Future, which is kind of an economic think tank. So those two, the 2 individuals who we worked with from those organizations, they had been hearing for quite some time about this topic, brain drain. So professional, quick show of hands, anybody, the term brain drain? Great. For those who haven't, professionals with large educational attainment leaving the region for other opportunities in other cities. And so what we know is that to have a successful region, we need leaders who are willing and able to work towards progress and to keep people here and attract new people. Because of, again, the slowly declining workforce and population due to natural deaths over birth rates, due to an aging population, due to normal migration patterns that any place sees at any given time. So what this research told us and gave us was figures to put in front of all of our audience and essentially say, we know that we need to make talent retention a priority instead of only focusing on trying to get new people into the region. It's a lot easier to get Ohioans who left somewhere else to come back than it is to attract somebody from Connecticut here into Northeast Ohio. So again, addressing and strengthening the STEM pipeline for young people of color, auditing biases, whether that's in your pay, whether that's in your in the opportunities that you give to certain employees. Is there a clear pathway for someone who starts at your entry-level position into middle management, into director, into vice president? Can somebody see themselves represented in the leadership in a company? Focusing on that retention of talent, and especially with minority workers and professionals who are disproportionately leaving Northeast Ohio. As well, and one other topic that came out of the Misaligned Opportunities organization, or Misaligned Opportunities report, was this idea that you can focus as a company on DEI or not, as but if you do have diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) as a principle, there needs to be decision-making power for those people to change culture, to advocate for those pay audits, whatever designation that a DEI professional has in the company has to have decision-making power. Yes.
Did you guys look at that data and segment it based on age and try to understand when people were leaving, was there a certain age segment that dominated that
Yes.
migration?
Yeah, so at the top, it's those above the age of 55, and then a age group that's kind of between like 18 and 25. So the people who are maybe leaving the state for college, right? That's common for students to do that. So that's an explainable factor. When it comes to people of an older age leaving, it's a lot of retirement age. We can also see where they came from. So some of the top destinations for people to leave Ohio to was like Phoenix, Tampa, a couple other kind of sunshiny states. But again, those ages both make sense, but it also triggered us to remind the people we're working with, yeah, we can focus on the people that are leaving the most, but is there a part in our strategy for looking at that middle group who is maybe going to make that decision in the next 5 years? They're 55, they're gonna make a decision about retirement in the next 5 years as it exists now, as retirement exists now. What is the Northeast Ohio Regional Talent Attraction ecosystem doing to encourage those people to stay?
How about on the opposite end of that, sort of leading up to the younger group who's leaving to go to college? If there are strategies that have been looked at recently to message to them about why they don't stay here and go to a local institution like Pennsylvania National Yolo or any of the other Ohio institutions and come back to their home community. Any strategies around messaging to that audience?
So I think the strategy has geared towards the age groups like beneath seniors in high school. Because once you've reached your senior year in high school, you maybe have a better idea of what you're doing. You know whether or not you want to leave the region or stay in the region. The messaging is geared towards that junior, sophomore, freshman, and maybe even before that, connecting with families and their kids in the educational systems and making sure that they know that the opportunities are around them. So we see a lot more talk about the conversations with kindergartners and even connecting with the parents to equip them with resources that give them that messaging. Otherwise, it's just been intention. Yeah.
With regards to Ohio, has been losing population for years, and the demographics you're talking about, we've been losing for years. We haven't been tracking that. And I was wondering about your organization. How does it deal with that? Because I don't think a lot of it is employment. I think a lot of it is social and cultural and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So, does your agency do anything to address those kind of issues? Even if you could do it.
Not so much, only because of the issues that might influence people unrelated to work, unrelated to education. Now we're starting to get into the political, cultural landscape. And while we can talk to culture in workplace, right? We can try and put this type of messaging that we know people who might want to see a different type of workplace, or they want to see a different type of Northeast Ohio. It has to come from our cultural institutions. We also, Team NEO has in our charter kind of say apolitical, so that makes it a little bit harder.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I think what we are starting to see, though, is there's a recognition that place-based marketing and development has a direct correlation into workforce retention and attraction. So focusing on quality of life issues like housing availability, access to resources like education, the arts, outdoor recreation, those sorts of things play directly into the ability to retain talent as well as attract talent. So more of that's starting to become part of the dialogue within the economic development community, and it traditionally hadn't been there. So I don't know if you're seeing that as well.
Yeah, and you reminded me of a great point, which I'll actually coming into here. our last Aligning Opportunities report, which we released last week, this is where we brought in one of our tools called the Vibrant Economy Index. The Vibrant Economy Index is a compilation of a couple hundred data points with about 50 metrics where we take Northeast Ohio and compare it against 12 markets across the country. So this includes Chicago, Austin, San Francisco, New York, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh. We separate these into a couple categories based off of whether they're nearby us, like Detroit or Pittsburgh, whether we are competing with them for new projects like a new headquarter location, like San Francisco or Austin. So a company might be looking at Northeast Ohio, Austin, or San Francisco for their new headquarter company. We need to know where we compare against these markets in a whole range of data. So for example, one of them is educational attainment of all Northeast Ohio residents. What we see with this report and data over time is that our educational attainment is about on par with the national average. But when we get into other segments of the Vibrant Economy Index, we look at issues like broadband access and look over time how that has changed. And thankfully, broadband access, and this will connect back to kind of the marketing and other quality of life indicators. So we put information like this in front of the economic developers that we talk with, the nonprofits that we talk with, who maybe have a little bit more ownership of leading strategy in those areas where it's quality of life. So we put data in front of them to show them here's what Northeast Ohio looks like compared to the markets. If you have any decision-making power to affect broadband access, here's how it will help our overall economy be more vibrant, attract more people, retain more people. Thankfully, after quarantine, pretty much emphasized the importance of broadband access. It's just been a run towards making sure that infrastructure is where it needs to be and where it is competitive to be, but also where it is equitable to be and where we are failing some of our communities. That has been a big topic and a big issue in research now. But it's nice because we are working, when we have this type of event, I met even just this past week a guy with Spectrum Internet, and he is there to look at this type of data, partner with communities, increase that broadband access. He totally advocates for broadband access across different regions, different communities. So we are hoping to build more connections like that to put this strategy and what we need to advance in front of the right people. Continuing on, there's 6 pillars of the Vibrant Economy Index. The first 2 are we have the talented. Talent is crucial to a vibrant economy. Equity is essential to a vibrant economy. Innovation is also essential. We look at research and development, R&D jobs over time, and we have seen about a decrease in 9% of these jobs translate to about 9,000 research and development jobs. We want to put this in front of the right people so that they know we need added recruitment of individuals in these career pathways, because that will boost our economy even more so, especially with Intel coming into the state. We know that research and development jobs will be more in demand over time as other people within the supply chain of Intel locate into Ohio and the surrounding states. Resiliency is another pillar of a vibrant economy. We need to have the correct infrastructure in place. And so while we are talking about talent, we are also talking about the rate of our industrial vacancy and whether or not we have the right amount of sites available and open to somebody looking at Northeast Ohio, and whether or not those are actually move-in ready, or whether or not they have what's called due diligence done. Have they done some sort of environmental study to understand all of the limitations of that we can then put in front of someone, not Intel, but somebody like Intel, who is just scanning the nation for the right site for them to be able to come into. competitive, whether or not we are competitive against our other peer markets. We've traditionally defined a competitive economy through gross domestic product, employment, per capita income. These are still fields that we keep track of regularly. And our labor force participation rate is an interesting one because it shows that we do have a slightly lower labor participation rate than the national average. We also have a slightly higher rate of people who are entering into retirement and who are out of the workforce than the nation. So keeping this in mind helps us also put our trends into context for our partners. And lastly, a vibrant economy has to be prosperous. There have to be opportunities for people to support their family, support themselves. And so we bring in these two figures here, 17% and 70%. Now 17% of jobs in Northeast Ohio, that means 70% of people in jobs are able to support their family in the situation that I talked about. So that's one person working, one person not working with two kids. 17% of people in Northeast Ohio workers are able to do that. Now 70% of people are able to find jobs that offer a self-sustaining wage, which is about $32,000 right now in Northeast Ohio. And that ranges by county, but more often than not, this will be the highest figure because of the nature of Cuyahoga County. The meat of our reports are in the information that we provide about in-demand jobs and about the gap between supply and demand. This year, we didn't want to just focus on in-demand jobs that pretty much always require a bachelor's degree plus, because what we're seeing in the economy is that there's a job shortage everywhere. And if we have a job shortage everywhere, then we need to put information about all types of jobs in front of young students and people who might be considering a career change at whatever age that they are. So this figure here is the top 20 jobs with an associate's degree or under, essentially. You could get this with a high school degree, get this with a 2-year degree. It's much more achievable, and you could put your hands on it a little bit quicker. But coming in towards the top are jobs like electricians. There are a lot of jobs out there in electricians, but they're also slated to grow. And a common across all of these occupations are they offer a self-sustaining wage. They are projected to grow maybe by 1%, maybe by 9% over the next 5 years, and they have relatively high average annual openings. So you start to put multiple data points in front of kids in a way maybe that they can understand, adults that they can definitely understand, that to be any one of these jobs, any one of these in-demand, critical to our kind of our economy and to keeping things moving, it's a lot more palatable. And also giving someone the ability to sort by their earnings goal, to be able to sort by whether or not they want to have some sort of training, they want to develop themselves on the job. That's the type of information that we can provide and put in front of our audiences. Coupling that, though, we don't want to get away from exposing people to other types of jobs within STEM, because we know that the infrastructure for them will just be invested in more. There's statewide investment opportunities in these fields. So all of these jobs are designated under this STEM umbrella from the Department of Homeland Security. They offer more often than not, and actually I think most of these, maybe a couple, do not offer a family sustaining wage, but it sure is a lot closer to that than it is not. And maybe jobs that people don't think about being STEM. Right here, this food science technicians. I like to point that out because Northeast Ohio has a couple major food, agricultural, agribusiness institutions here. We have J.M. Smuckers, we have Orlando Baking Company, we have Great Lakes Cheese. These are huge companies that offer really great jobs and really good advancement. They're community-based, and they're interesting jobs. They're not, the food agribusiness industry is not going away anytime soon. One of our last parts of the Aligning Opportunities report also focuses on certifications and skills. This has been a larger topic this year as we kind of realize that people either aren't qualified, and that's maybe through data that we see with the Where Are the Workers study, which I'll cover in a second. But essentially, are we encouraging our kids to look, and our students and our transitioning workers, are we encouraging them to look at specific certifications and specific skills development instead of only a degree tracked? So we know that in healthcare, manufacturing, and IT, these new certifications have emerged out of 2020. These didn't maybe exist before 2020. They definitely didn't exist in 2019, where this data came from. So even a manufacturing certification in global food safety, that might open up the doors for someone who is either in between jobs, maybe they're interested in understanding the food industry, and it's just it's a more reachable short-term goal than to take out loans and go back into school, depending on where the student is in their career. So again, the opportunity that we see here is to promote certifications and skills in specific occupations and other educational development areas, emphasizing this holistic talent approach. Not only should we be talking to an individual about college, about a master's degree, we should also be coupling that with the certifications and skills that go into the industry that they're even looking at. Does a student know what potential industries they could go to or be employed in with the degree that they've chosen or with the skills certification track that they've chosen? We also think that advancing this type of work and advancing this understanding in culture will help us achieve a vibrant economy over time. When we're looking at data, we know that first off, data is never current. It's always lagged by 2, 3, sometimes even 5 years. So we know that it will take a long time to see the fruits of our labor now in the data that we see in the future. Yes?
Question. You talked about one of the groups of the workforce that are leaving, at 18 to 22-year-olds, and recognizing clearly they're headed off to college. Is there any strategy or thought process around how we attract that 25 to 32-year-old? Because I would challenge the thought that, we got to encourage our young people to stay here. I would encourage them to leave, that boomerang effect of them coming back. Greg mentioned his son's in Cincinnati. I would encourage him to go to Cincinnati until he's 22. And then go to Indianapolis and get an internship. And then go on to Chicago and work until he's 28. And when he chooses to come back here at 28, he has life experiences, education, and he brings a wealth of knowledge to our community. So this place is kind of sticky. When you leave everyone in this room could be somewhere else, but they choose to be here. So because it is so sticky, and because we see maybe aging parents, or maybe grandparents that have passed away, generational properties and houses that kind of transition for, we didn't sell grandma and grandpa's house, so maybe you'll move back in. Has there been any study or strategy around regionally what it looks like to re-engage those 25 to 32-year-olds and bring them back to our workforce?
It's a tough one because the reasons why someone might come back is more often linked to family. Yeah, it's linked to that social network. I know that there are a lot of marketing campaigns to kind of entice people to take a second look, and that has been the norm. Right now, there's an organization called the Talent Alliance. It's a group of a couple stakeholders in Cleveland and then also broader Northeast Ohio who are trying to address that question right now and what type of power they have to be able to do that. I think some of the new age concepts are even offering people of that age group or professionals in general a stipend or a certain cash amount to relocate if they do relocate. I've seen that from actual cities themselves, not just employers. I think that's a period of we are trying to figure it out. So I haven't heard any strategies that have seen immediate impacts, but it's a long game. And I see a couple of my slides didn't load. I wanted to talk about a study called Where Are the Workers, if anyone's heard of that. Wherearetheworkers.com. It's a study of 11 counties in Northeast Ohio by the Fund for Our Economic Future and Team NEO and a couple other stakeholders. And it is a really good resource to put in front of yourself and maybe a partner when you're talking about talent issues or, where are the workers? Where are people to fill my jobs? I'm having a hard time filling jobs. It gives a good outline of the barriers that people are facing right now, and also quantifies the amount, like 400,000 have retired, or 38,000 are actively looking for work, or 18,000 are out of the workforce for good, and they're still of age to be working. So it gives you some good ammo to have those types of conversations, and to also see from employers themselves how much they have offered new wages, how much that's helped, and from workers themselves, do they want higher wages, or is it a combination of not only they want meaningful work, high wages, and flexibility, they also want to be able to take their time off and not feel like they're overburdened at work. So that I'd encourage everybody to look at Where Are the Workers.
No other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Sandra, for your presentation. All right, so we're almost at 9 o'clock. Again, Sandra, I really appreciate all this data and information. And really, this just tries to help us conceptualize and understand what's happening regionally and how we can apply strategies to address some of these challenges on workforce. I will say that Mark's example with my son's probably not a very good one, because he probably should have stayed at home so we could watch him closer, because he's a bit of a knucklehead, right? He's like his dad. So I'm just saying. The other one that I saw that was interesting there, speaking, I'm going to pick up my kids, right? So I'll tell a quick story. So I'm redoing my basement here years ago, and we're running some wire to rewire the basement, and my oldest son's helping me out. We're doing this. I said, hey, you're doing a pretty good job. What do you think? Maybe you'd want to be an electrician. Right? Saw the slide where the electrician was in there, high demand. He said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be an electrician. So you know what he is now? He's an underemployed neuroscientist. So go figure, So I don't know. Maybe he'll go back to school and get a certification for being an electrician. But anyways, yeah, I know. I tell him that all the time. So thank you again for being here this morning. Appreciate it very much. Next month, we will be, help me out, Kelly. You told me and I forgot already.
Safer Communities for the December panel. And for those of you who maybe are leadership Asheville County alums, think back to your Public Safety and Justice Day and hearing the viewpoint from those working within our law enforcement organizations throughout the county, whether that's city or the sheriff's office. You'll hear from their experiences over the last few years and ways we can help make Asheville County a stronger, more vibrant, safer community.
All right. So hopefully we'll see you all next month. So be safe until then, and thanks again for being here.